All right, grown-ups, it's just our time. I love the babies, but to help you, I gotta speak my mind. This segment's here to help you grow with book reviews, lessons, and things you'll be glad to know. If your little one's restless or looking to play, send them to my other playlist. The read-alouds there will brighten their day. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to the Teacher Lady Show. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Teacher Lady Speaks. I'm Miss Erica, the Teacher Lady, your fairy godparent when it comes to sharing joyful stories and growing young minds. Now, every single week on this channel, we talk about a new topic. And this week's topic is all about self-advocacy and effective communication. We want children to be able to use their voice or their other tools to be able to communicate their needs, their desires, and even their concerns, okay? And of course, we're using picture books to be able to do so. Now, this week's read aloud is Peter Reynolds' Say Something. On Monday, we had the Teacher Lady Reads, where we did an interactive read aloud. On Wednesday, we had a behind the book review on this topic. And then today on Friday, we are wrapping it all up with this episode of the Teacher Lady Speaks. Now, here on this segment of the show, we use my experience teaching tiny humans to help enhance your experience raising them, okay? Now, this is done through resources, insight, and honest reflection from a well-seasoned educator, hey, that's me, that understands just how hard love work can be. So the goal of this segment, you can think of it like a crash course or a professional development to give you tips and tricks and resources and all sorts of things to help you to be able to raise a child who is able to effectively communicate and advocate when necessary. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. You ready? Let's grow. Defining the topic for a child. So, effective communication is your ability to express or vocalize or just communicate your thoughts, your feelings, and your perspective in a way that is clear and for other people to be able to understand, okay? Now, it's important that children understand that there are multiple ways that we communicate. We communicate through our body language, through our facial expressions. Children relatively quickly learn that if a person looks drowsy and is yarning, they're probably exhausted. If they're super excited and bubbly, they might be more engaged in conversation. And so that's a form of communication, your body language. For children who are nonverbal, some children use an iPad for communication or another communication device. But communication in and of itself is a way to let other people know what is going on with you, okay? Now, in regards to self-advocacy, that is the child's ability to speak up for themselves, okay? So if there is an issue, if there's a concern, something doesn't feel good, something is wrong, you have a question, there's something you don't like. So many people go to a restaurant, they order a meal, they don't like the meal, and they don't want to tell their chef that they don't like the meal, or they're given the wrong food and they just eat whatever they were served because they have not learned the ability to self-advocate. So self-advocacy means to speak up for what is needed, means to speak up for what other people need to understand about you. And advocacy in general is speaking up in order to support those who are around you. So I would say, we just had the week on time management and effective organization skills. And I would say that this goes right there in terms of life skills and things that people need to know how to do in order to be successful. You have to know how to communicate, express yourself, express your feelings, and you need to know how to self-advocate and speak up for yourself when it is needed. Now, every single week on this show, we compare two states so that we better understand the curriculum, right? We want to understand what are children learning on that topic in school. So for the topics of self-advocacy and effective communication, we're going to be comparing the state of California to the state of Texas to better understand what they're learning in class, or at least what they should be learning in class according to that curriculum. So In California, effective communication and self-advocacy are explicitly supported through the Health Education Content Standards, English Language Arts Framework, and transformative social and emotional learning competencies. So beginning in kindergarten, students are expected to identify emotions, express needs appropriately, and seek help from trusted adults. By grades 2 through 5, students practice assertive communication, boundary setting, conflict resolution, and decision making related to personal safety and well-being. For California's transformative social emotional learning framework, it is emphasized that students have agency in their decisions, their voice, and their belonging. This is to teach children how to advocate for themselves while respecting others. Now, in the state of Texas, effective communication and self-advocacy are embedded within the health education and English language arts reading standards. In grades K through 2, students learn to identify emotions, communicate needs, practice asking for help, and recognize trusted adults. By grades 3 to 5, students are expected to demonstrate assertive communication, self-management, empathy, and problem solving in social situations. Texas standards emphasize expressing feelings respectfully, advocating for personal safety, and using communication skills to build healthy relationships across grade levels. Students develop the confidence to speak up while maintaining mutual respect. So I would say that both the state of California as well as the state of Texas kind of have things that are very generalized, like children should be able to set boundaries and tell a teacher if something is wrong. But I don't think that there is enough in terms of these are the classes that students are going to take to learn how to communicate, to learn how to self-advocate, to learn how to advocate for those who are around them. There's no courses, there's no classes or set lesson plans. And these standards, in my opinion, are very general, which means that, of course, you're going to have to supplement if it is important for you, for your child to be able to speak up for themselves. So I am now going to share some resources that might help if you have a little one that is on the shyer side or they have more of a challenge when it comes to speaking up. Some of these might be helpful. The first resource I'm going to share is amaze.org. They have a youth-centered communication video, and that's amaze.org. Amaze provides short animated videos designed specifically for children and preteens to learn how to communicate clearly about boundaries, consent, feelings, and safety. The platform encourages children to pause, reflect, and practice responses through guided discussion. The next resource I'm going to share is Committee for Children, Second Step, which is a family resource. This is secondstep.org/family-resource. So Second Step offers family-friendly activities to help children practice assertive communication, problem solving, and emotional regulation. Their tools include games, conversation starters, and role play prompts that children can actively practice and participate in at home, okay? So the curriculum is research-based and widely used in schools, making it easy to reinforce skills children may already be learning. Now, the next resource I am going to share is called Generation Citizen. They have a youth voice and civic expression unit of their website, generationscitizen.org. Generation Citizen helps children understand that their voice matters beyond personal spaces in classrooms, communities, and systems. Through age-appropriate activities, children learn how to express opinions, ask questions, and advocate for change respectfully. And then the last resource I am going to share, of course, if you need more, you already know, go to my website, scroll all the way to the bottom, give me your email address, and I will be sure to share more information with you. But for now, the last resource I'm going to share is the Toastmasters Youth Leadership Program. So Toastmasters is a powerful hands-on experience that helps young people build confidence in communication, leadership, and self-advocacy. Through interactive speaking activities, role play, and peer feedback, children learn how to express their ideas clearly, listen with intention, and use their voice with purpose. Okay, let's move on to best practices. The first best practice when it comes to effective communication specifically is for children to understand how they are generally being received. So often you'll hear children say, well, I didn't mean it like that. Well, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. And it is important for them to understand the perspective of the person that is receiving that information. So how do they get there? You practice. You literally practice. When my child comes home and they give me a situation of conflict, I ask them what was said. And then I listen to them. And then I respond. I give them the perspective of the other person. And then we role play that situation over again in ways in which that message could have been clearer in terms of the delivery or the communication. Because so much of effective communication is clarity. Okay? It is getting children to understand that you are communicating messages in multiple ways. If your child one day is letting a person climb on their back and the next day they're angry and they're screaming about the person climbing on their back, that is a mixed communication. They are sending mixed messages to the child that they do not want on their back because yesterday it was fine. And so children need to understand that the way in which you communicate heavily impacts the other person who you are having a conversation with, who is trying to figure out what it is that you're saying. They need to understand that the messages that they're trying to deliver, if they're inconsistent in those messages, it gets lost, okay? Another effective communication skill is for children, and all of these are applicable for adults, but they should practice what you heard them say. So if I give an instruction to my child, before we get into, I didn't hear you, I didn't know, I didn't understand, whatever else, I have them repeat back what was asked. Okay, what did I say? What did you hear me say? Oh, you told me to go upstairs and hang up my jacket and then take my bath. Okay, so what are you doing? I'm going upstairs, I'm hanging up my jacket, and I'm taking my bath. Having children repeat back when you're trying to communicate with them is a super useful tool in making sure that there is no miscommunication. Okay? And they can do the same thing without condescending. You're supposed to meet your friend on the play yard to go to the sandbox together, but you got to go to the bathroom first. And so you guys make a plan to meet at the sandbox. Well, it's completely okay if the child learns to say, where were we meeting again? And then the other person says sandbox. Or, we're meeting at the sandbox, right? That confirmation, the confirmation helps greatly with miscommunication. Effective communication is all about making sure that your message is being delivered clearly to most people. We have language barriers, we have communication differences just in terms of, various abilities and so on and so forth. Some children advocate at a clearer level than other children. Some children talk way more than other children. So it's definitely a mixed bag. But overall, we want to make sure that there is clarity in what it is that we're saying. And another best practice in terms of self-advocacy is to teach your child that it is okay to speak up. So like when I take my kid to get her nails done and that isn't the color that she wants or expects, it's not rude for her to request that the color be changed. She just started on the nail. And she will. She'll say, oh, I actually don't like this color. Or they'll look to me and they'll say, what colors does she want? Or what color should we do for her? And I'll say, ask her. And she'll say, well, I want a pattern. And I would like to go pink, blue, pink, blue. And literally you'll see people in the nail shop be shocked at how well she expresses her own needs and desires. I believe so often with our children, we act like it is rude for them to advocate for themselves. So when we go into restaurants and it's time to order, we order for them. Or when they're getting their nails done, we tell the nail tech what color they want or what pattern they should get. We don't give them the ability to use their own voice. So then inevitably, as they grow older, they don't know how. Your child should be communicating and self-advocating for themselves unless it's a safety issue. So if there is a conflict between your child and the educator, they're going to address the conflict first, even if they're 7. Hey, Mr. So-and-so, I didn't like when I raised my hand and you said you were going to call on me, but then you never called on me and it hurt my feelings. Boom. They're practicing self-advocacy. Hey, friend, I was wondering if today I could actually be on your team because the last 3 times we played baseball, you didn't choose me. And I just wanted to know if today I can be on your team. Boom. Effective communication. It hurt my feelings when all of you all got to play and I didn't get to play because the people at the table were talking, but I wasn't talking. Boom. Effective communication. I really enjoyed watching this movie. It made me think about how I should probably start a sport to make sure that I stay healthy. Boom. And what you will see time and time again is that the more you allow your child to use their voice, the more they will use their voice, baby. They will have no issues talking as long as you don't shut them up, which is my next best practice. Be mindful of how you are altering their voice, their ability to communicate, and their ability to self-advocate. If they come to you and they say, hey, mom, it really bothered me when you talked about the bad grade that I got in front of my uncle. I didn't like that. And you say, well, that's too bad. And get up in that room and next time study more, and you shut them down. They will learn that their voice is not going to be heard and respected. So what is the point of trying to use it? So make sure that you are a safe space to hold conversations. Your child is not going to like a lot of the things that you do. It is completely okay for them to express those dislikes and for you in response to also communicate. Well, your uncle is part of your village and he is part of the people responsible for making sure that you are doing what you need to be doing. And so when I saw that you got a bad grade, or when I saw that you cheated on your test, or when I saw that you've been cutting up in school, I needed to bring in community to figure out how to better support you, because you too should be effectively communicating. So explain things to your children. When they come to you and they don't understand something, explain it. Have them repeat back, because all of these day-to-day practices really do add up in a child that is confident using their voice and a child that is able to communicate effectively. And ultimately, these skills are needed. So many people don't get the raises they deserve because they cannot self-advocate. They don't get the meals they deserve because they cannot self-advocate. They don't get the things that are supposed to be coming their way. They don't speak up and share their feelings, and that causes other issues and emotional issues and addictions, because it's just all being stuffed down or all being suppressed because we did not learn how to speak up and use our voice. It is crucial. It is crucial. Being able to advocate for yourself, being able to communicate, being able to express your feelings and your emotions are all things that are needed in order for a child to thrive in society. Now, I will say that for children who are neurodivergent, for children who communicate in alternate ways or maybe use assistive technology, we're still going to empower them to communicate as much as we can. All rules still apply, but on the level in which they're able to do it. So for a child who is nonverbal, if they want juice and they're pointing at the juice and you are working on using the iPad juice button, you would then tell them, iPad, what is it you want? What is it you want? Have them push the button. And when they push the button, here you go. Say thank you. Just because children don't communicate the same way as you does not mean that they don't understand. Children understand body communication, facial communication, verbal communication, attitudes, angers, frustrations. There are real souls in those bodies. They feel that. And so being mindful, especially if you're frustrated with your child because you are overwhelmed, because being a parent to a child who is neurodivergent definitely has its challenges. But being mindful that everything you do is communicating a message of some sort and they understand you. And the last best practice is to not anticipate or just give. We need our children to speak up. If they want us to grab their coat, I need them to tell me that you need me to grab your coat. If there is something that is making you uncomfortable, I need you to express that. Now, of course, this is for children who are able and have the ability to communicate. But so often I hear parents and guardians and even educators speak on children's behalf, and it genuinely suppresses their ability for them to be able to speak for themselves. It's the same thing as older siblings. When you have a child, sometimes that older sibling will speak on behalf of the child. And now that child is not having the opportunity to express their own needs, to self-advocate, and to speak up for themselves. And so in those situations, you still got to tell the older sibling, oh, let me have him tell me. Thank you for telling me. I want to hear it from him. I want to hear it from them. Because if other people in the family keep speaking up on behalf of the child, in this way of protection and love, sure, but it takes away from that child having the practice to be able to speak up for themselves. When to seek help. If your child is not communicating at all, if they are speaking in 2-word sentences and they're 4 years old, if they're just having a difficult time getting any words out, there might be something else going on with them. And to which I encourage you to go talk to a guidance counselor, go talk to their educator. If they're in preschool, see if there's anything that they're noticing, and ultimately go to a doctor and see if there needs to be special evaluations, okay? Because children should be using 4-word sentences and then 5-word sentences. They should start saying some words. 2 years old, 3 years old, you should hear something. So if you're getting nothing, you want to evaluate why. You want to figure out what's going on. And then the other time to seek help is if your child can communicate, but they're just completely shut down. A lot of times children who are struggling with self-esteem stuff, who are struggling with feeling confident or feeling part of a group, they'll just stop talking altogether because they want to shrink themselves. And at that point, you might want to seek some additional support or resources to make sure that that child is okay, because that could be a sign of depression. That could be a huge sign of anxiety and just nervousness when it comes to talking or speaking. So you definitely want to check in with a guidance counselor, with a doctor, maybe with even a local librarian. A lot of times libraries have so many resources aside from books to figure out if there is something else you can do. Common questions. My child doesn't like to talk. What are some other ways that they can communicate? Children communicate in so many ways. They can draw a picture. That is a form of communication. They can show you with their bodies how they're feeling, which is a form of communication. They can give a facial expression, which is a form of communication. They can use the iPad, as we discussed earlier. Pointing is even a form of communication. And so if they're not verbally communicating yet, but they're having other ways to get their point across, you want to acknowledge that while encouraging the verbal part of it. So what that will look like is, it looks like you need help with your shoes. Can you ask for that? Or can you say shoes, 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 shoes? Thank you. You want to get them as much as possible to speak. But if they're communicating and you understand them, acknowledge that communication while also encouraging them to go verbal as much as possible. The next question is, what is the difference between self-advocacy and a child being disrespectful? I genuinely think we are obsessed with keeping a child in a child's place in a way of respect, and that often overshadows the child being a human being. It is not disrespectful for a child to speak up about their feelings, their concerns, their emotions. Children get told so many instructions without clarity. So you say, hey, put your shoes on, we're leaving. And they say, well, where are we going? Don't worry about it. Well, if the tables were turned and some big person was telling you to put your shoes on, wouldn't you want to know where you were going? Or the child says, what's for dinner? You'll see when I put it on the table. You can't just tell them it's chicken, bacon, and potatoes on the stove. When you struggle to communicate, when you struggle to let that child express themselves, then disrespect or raising a disrespectful child should not be the concern. Raising a child who cannot speak up for themselves should be the concern. Because now they have an example of how it is okay speaking to them. So now when a partner speaks to them in the same way, well, this is my normal. Or when a teacher speaks to them the same way, well, this is my normal. You cannot be the exception when it comes to a child being disrespected and not being heard. So if you want your child to speak up, then when they speak, you're going to have to listen and respond. Now, it is completely okay for you to have effective communication skills and tell them, hey, I'm fatigued. We have an hour drive home, and for the last hour, I just need to listen to music. Now, you done told that baby, I'm not answering no more questions without shutting them down. If you have a child that is consistently asking questions, I know I got one. You're going to have to set parameters for those questions, but you want to try to not shut down their voice. So what that could look like is I'll answer 2 questions now, but then I need to focus on cooking. What are they? Shoot. And then they'll scour their brains for 2 questions, and then they'll move out of your hair. And if they come back before dinner is ready, you can remind them, oh, I already told you I only had 2 questions in me for now, but write them down and we can talk about them later. Which brings me to my next best practice. At the end of your night, leave a few minutes for your child to communicate with you, to talk about what's going on with you, to check in with you. We are so busy as adults, as parents, as caregivers, that literally we do not carve out 30 minutes to actually talk to our children. And in our minds, we're taking care of them because they're fully dressed, they're fully bathed, their hair is combed, they have all their school supplies. We're doing a lot for them. But you doing a lot for your child does not take away the need for you to speak to your child. You got to talk to them. I know it's hard sometimes. You got to do it anyway. Let's keep growing. How do we teach children to stick to their boundaries? Well, I think the first thing is experience. As that child goes to school, as they go to church, as they go to parks, they will inevitably have so many experiences with setting a firm boundary. And it's important that children understand that once I say something, once I've expressed my comfort level and that boundary, and that's not respected, I get to remove myself. I get to back up and I get to stop communication in that moment because I was not respected, because I was not treated fairly. I deal with this all the time with students in classrooms and on the schoolyard, where one student tells another one they really don't like it when they touch their hair. And then the child touches their hair anyway. And now that student tells the other one, I no longer want to be your partner because you keep touching my hair. And I modeled that. So when a child comes to me and they say, such and such touches my hair, did you tell them? Did you go tell them to stop touching your hair? No, I told you. Well, you're telling the wrong person. I didn't touch your hair. You need to go tell them, hey, I don't like that. I need you to respect my space. Do not touch my hair. and then move on. So many people think that that's rude because we don't understand that we can be confronting without being confrontational. You can address issues and problems without it being an argument. You can have a disagreement. You can say, hey, I'm sorry you couldn't make dinner tonight, but actually tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. doesn't work, and I won't be available again for another 2 weeks. Would you like to reschedule then? So you don't have to feel like you're going to be brat or mean or rude because you're advocating for your needs, because you're communicating what feels right for you. Okay? It is a practice, and it's something that adults struggle with heavily. And it heavily impacts your quality of life. Not being able to clearly communicate, not being able to respond to emails or phone calls, text messages, not being able to hold conversations, not being able to ask questions. So you just kind of go with the flow, even though you know you're being overcharged. All of these ways, going to get your hair done, hating the hairstyle, it looking nothing like the picture, but you're paying for it and walking away anyway. It's because you have not had the practice of advocating and protecting yourself. Self-advocacy is self-protection. And it's time for you to start. So hopefully some of these things that I shared today, you are able to apply to your own life, because your voice too deserves to be heard, even if it shakes in the beginning. Thank you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of The Teacher Lady Speaks. If you do not know, I am also an author and an illustrator, and I encourage you to go check out my children's books. I also started a program called the Empathy Library, which is a pay-it-forward program where we get books to children in need on purpose by way of your generosity. Now, what's really cool about the Empathy Library is that those books are given with intention. So the books that the child receives reflect their personal identity, okay? So go to the website, check out the books, check out the Empathy Library, check out the other read-alouds from this week on this topic. And until next time, you remember to enjoy the moment or go be a joy in the moment. Bye.